Well, welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, the good and the bad of annuities, part 4 in our series on retirement tips for the 2018 update with registered financial consultant and investment advisor representative, Ted Meyer. Welcome to the fourth segment, Ted.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, I'm sorry to say all annuities are not created equal. They're not designed equal. They're not constructed equal. Ken Fisher says he hates them all. I don't hate them all, but I hate a lot of them. How's that?
I'll go with you on that. Yep.
So let's do the bad boy ones first, okay? Now, back in the day, and Steve, I was a big proponent of this, and back in the day, it was worth looking at. Variable annuities, my best one I ever saw out there was, think about this, ladies and gentlemen, it was 7% on a quarterly lock. That means every quarter,
7%.
I'm getting at the, could be more, but and whatever that principal grew to, that became my new bottom number.
Yeah.
7% quarterly. Those days are gone.
Long gone.
Now the expense loads back in the day were kind of expensive, but the benefits were there. Now they're still kind of expensive.
Expense loads are still there,
and the benefits aren't there.
Correct.
So people say, Steve, you're so down on variables. I just wanted to use it for accumulation. I said, if I'm going to do that, I just take a qualified plan and use mutual funds and ETFs direct. I wouldn't even do that, right?
Yep.
But in my view, you're not really getting anything. Even the deferral on variable annuities, the cost is prohibitive. In my view, it's prohibitive.
Absolutely.
Ted?
I'm with you. We sit down with clients all the time that will bring in VAs that they've purchased in the last 4, 5, 7 years. And you're looking at loads from mortality and expense to income riders to cash withdrawal features, north of 3, as high as 4, 4.25%, 4.5% on these.
Just to play.
Just to play.
Yeah.
So you've got a mutual fund that's returning 7, and I'm paying 4.5. So I don't think you bought that to get the 2.5 that they're giving you, but that's where it is. They're very expensive.
Okay. So most deferral can be picked up in a qualified plan. If I'm looking at deferral, I ask people to always look at, hey, look, if you're looking at variable annuities, I want you to look at index annuities because the costs are way less.
Significantly.
Now, I remember, like in the S&P 500, if I used an index there, I'm not going to get the dividend, so I freely confess it.
Yep.
I just have to look at the numbers. Is it worth looking at? So if you're looking at variable and you like the market, you may want to look at indexing because the best provision of indexing, Ted, is this: you can't lose in any 1 year. Zero, you could get zero, but you couldn't get negative numbers.
Correct.
Okay, so you look at this. You have clients coming in with variables. I do too.
Yep.
Variable contracts, and they're at their, especially now, they're at their, so a lot of these guys are coming at their maturity dates. So it's time to change. And I tell them, I don't want to re-up you there because the expense loads.
Correct.
But just a little heads up. I don't want to be picking on variable annuities just for this.
Sure.
But if you go to your 401k and you look at the total expenses that are put in we're supposed to be disclosing this on the 408b2, but nobody's doing it, in my view, the best way it should be done.
No, they're not.
If you look at it, I have people that were in their late 20s and they've been in qualified plans all their life, and they blew almost 100 G's in fees over that 40-year period.
Absolutely.
Baby boomers, 100K on fees.
Yep.
So when you're looking at variable annuities, when you're looking at qualified, you got to look at everything. The product fees. We're going to get into that.
Is just a piece of it.
Yeah, we're going to get into this next segment, so I don't need to overstep my segment here.
Yep.
All right, so variable, they're expensive, and I'd have to see something really great. Right now, I am not there on them. I'm just not there.
No, not on the variable piece right now. Absolutely.
Ted, what about index as an alternative, though?
Index is a nice alternative, but again, like you said, most annuities we have to pay attention to. The indexes, yes, they offer you the protection of downside. Mm-hmm. So if the market goes south, I don't lose any in an index. Mm-hmm. The fees are significantly less. So instead of being in the 3.5%, 4% on the variables, I might now be down in, you can get some at 0, but typically the ladder riders and some other features, a la carte, and you'll be up in the 1% range on that. To me, the big difference on all of the, index annuities that we're talking about right now is the way they calculate the interest. Because a lot of these that have what's called a cap, 3, 4, 5% caps, in markets we've had here recently, we've left a lot of opportunity on the table. So I'll look at those and kind of look more for ones that have spreads. I get all of it for a little bit of a fee. Now the fee may be more, but if I'm going to get a 9% return and a 2% fee versus a 3% cap, it's a math equation.
Okay, let's just make
at
sure,
the end of the day.
Let's make sure everybody understands what you're saying.
Yep.
A cap is they're restricting your ability to make a certain amount.
Above a certain amount. So I might have an annuity that says in 1 year I can make 4%. Okay, well that's a safe play. So I get 4% for no fee. And if the market goes up, as it has here recently, double digits, let's just say I get a 10%. My 4 was locked in. I paid 0. You have opportunities out there with other annuities that have what are called spreads, where I could get up to 100% of the gain, but they may, if you decide that option, charge you a fee for that.
Okay, well, let's just go to the yin and yang you just described. Okay, so let's go spread on the last one. So I made 10.
Yep.
And my spread is, I had to pay 3 points to be in the game.
Let's say I paid 3%.
So you're telling me I netted 7.
I netted 7.
On the other, conversely,
Yep.
I had a cap at 4, but it made 10. I get 4.
I get 4.
That's it.
Yeah.
So are you saying that in your experience and your agnostic position on product, right?
Correct.
You think spread's the way to go?
I think spreads are the way to go. Because what happens is when you're participating in the spread on these indexes, we all know the markets will perform over long term. If my downside is a 0, whether I have a cap or a spread, then I'm trying to get as much as I can on the upside. I think spreads are the way to go.
Now, just keep in mind, just for due diligence and compliance sake, you remember you don't participate in dividends in any of the indices on an indexed annuity, or by the way, just I'm going to throw it in, indexed universal life as well.
Correct.
All right, so let's talk about, we've talked about this before. I go out to bankrate.com every week.
Send clients there all the time.
What's going on in the 5-year, because that's kind of the indicator, kind of the bellwether.
Yep.
Right now, I'm sitting the best 5-year in some bank that's virtual. I don't even know if they got a building. They're sitting there at 235 for 5. Now, 235 for 5 in the interest rates by the Fed have been ticking up and up. So I'm like, hey, I'm out of debt. That's the good part.
Correct.
But the bad part is, hey, maybe I should hold on here to figure out, should I trigger an annuity? And I tell people, hey, be careful because the rates are going up. Those single premium needed annuities and deferred income annuities, which we'll get to in a second, could be a play.
Yes.
Now, I went out, and the best number I saw right now on the street is 3.5% for 5-year lock. 3.5 versus 235.
Yep.
Now, Ted, walk me through this now. Annuity at 3.5 against the best that I saw out there on bankrate.com at 235.
You're talking about a CD on Bankrate.
Yeah, just a CD. That's right. 5-year.
So the difference between 310 and 235, that's the obvious.
Well, that's a head turner to me.
That's a head turner right there. Now, 20 years ago it wasn't, but today it is.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Then let's talk about the annuity versus the CD. Okay. So in January of every year, when I have a CD, what am I going to get from the bank?
1099.
1099. It says I got to pay what? Tax on that 235.
Even if I didn't use it?
Even if I didn't touch it. Absolutely.
Well, that, I say in my old baby boomer language, that bites.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the annuity, I don't get it until I actually use it. So I'm deferring it. So if I didn't touch it, I get a true 310.
All right. So let me get this straight, because this is kind of bothers me.
Yep.
So I'm credited. Let's say I got my 235 that year, right?
Yep.
Or whatever. Let's say you did a 1-year CD just to make it really specific.
Yep.
So if you got a $1.35 1-year CD, I have to pay that.
Correct.
Okay. So I have to pay it even though I didn't need it or use it.
Correct.
And that number still goes over to my Social Security.
Absolutely.
And and is includable in the provisional income
Yes,
tax.
it is.
That bites.
Yes, that bites.
Okay. All right. So I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay. Now on the annuity side, I only use it. I only take it.
I only pay taxes on it if I take it.
So if I hold for 5 years, I'm not paying anything.
Right.
Whereas every year on the CD, I'm paying it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So that's it. I wonder if there's
and it's every year. Multiply
is there any
that by
power
5
to
years.
deferral here? Is there any economics in the deferral itself?
Isn't it Einstein? The power, triple tax deferral when I'm not paying tax on money that I'm not taking out and I can compound interest on top of that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm all over that, especially if they do play compounded.
Yeah.
And by the way, keep in mind some of these annuities that are out there on the street are simple interest, not compound. So just to make sure you know what you're talking about. That's right. Now, by the way, so my annuities paying more. I only pay taxes when I need it. The last thing is they say, well, Steve, your annuities have surrender charges. How about certificates of deposit? Do they have surrender hits?
They technically don't have a surrender charge, but if you take it out, they'll probably charge you a percentage of the interest that you had.
So you're going to pay some kind of okay, let me say this.
You can't play in this game for free.
There's a negative financial and economic result of taking money out early on a 5-year CD.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So you may want to look at this because right now the annuity rates are, in my view, I think they're a little more sensitive to the rates that the Fed is doing. So at the end of the year, I don't want to predict here, but at the end of the year, we might be close to 4. We might get to 4 on some annuity out there that wants to be at the edge, who's had a very short timeline on their bond portfolio. We'll see.
Correct.
Let's just see.
Yep.
Could happen. Now, let's talk about lifetime annuities. And a lot of people have heard the first time in my life the public actually knows what I'm talking about before I get up there.
Spias and dias, you
They go,
bet.
Steve, I know about the lifetime income you can't outlive. Is it a good deal? That's the only question is now. So I always go, hey, look, I think in my specific case, Steve, a boomer,
Yep.
my wife will probably live forever. She's a diet gal. She's an exercise gal. So I really expect her to be into her 90s, maybe even 100, no problem.
Okay.
All right, so that's lifetime. Pretty good IRR the longer I live, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the longer you live, the internal rate of return keeps going up
Keeps
every
going up.
single
You're getting
year.
mortality credits, absolutely.
So payout rate's one thing.
Yep.
It could be 6%, 5%, whatever it is. But the internal rate of return is based on how long you live.
Yes.
So when you're looking at lifetime annuities and you say, I think it's very easy for me to hit 90, 95, then the internal rate of returns looks pretty doggone good. You're in your threes. We might hit some fours at the end of the year. I will have to see how it looks.
Right.
Those are the things, the good and the bad. Remember, we don't really put a moral attribute to products. We just want to know the math makes sense.
It's all math.
Don't forget to watch our next segment on mutual funds and index real costs. Part 5 in our series on retirement tips for 2018 update. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check your tax consultant, legal counsel, and in this case, your financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.
Oh my